say it might seem like a strange idea, but that's what I love about this work and this study. It's very, very practically based, because you can hear the theory of something and then go and try it out, check it out for yourself. I remember when I lived at home, and I've got two brothers, and I'd be out, learning this stuff and applying it. I'd be out in the garden sensing flowers with my hand, and my mum had sweet corn growing in the garden, and I'd be sensing that. And sometimes I'd hear some giggling, and I'd look back to the house, and my younger brother had brought his friends over, and they were looking through the window laughing at what the weirdo brother was up to. But you see, also it's a very real thing. This chap, Dr. Cleve Baxter, in the 60s, he trained with the law enforcement to operate these polygraph machines, which is the lie detector. I'm sure you've all seen it in the movies. Where were you on the night of the 14th? And the person says an untruth, and the graph goes like that. It reacts to their nerves and their emotions. And he was at home one night, and he was a bit bored, and he had a plant there, and he thought, wonder what would happen if I hooked up the polygraph to the plant. So he did, and then he was amazed that on the printout, it had a similar reaction and vibration to if it had been hooked up to a human. And he thought, wow, this is interesting. And he thought, I wonder if I can make it react like, when a person's lying and the graph goes like that. So he thought, I'll take my hot coffee over to it and dip its leaf in there. And then he looked at the printout, no reaction, just that same sort of average rate. And then he just thought, what if I got a match and burnt one of its leaves? And then then the graph went like that. And so it had literally picked up his intention and thought he had not done anything physically. So it opened up a whole area of research that he ended up with a whole team of people working on it. And there were most curious things, like he did actually get an assistant to burn one of the leaves with a match, and I had the predictable result. But this assistant went away on holiday, I think the story goes, and when he came back into the lab the following week, they happened to have this same plant hooked up to the polygraph, and it went like that as soon as the man entered the room. So, wow. So it knew, and it had memory, because it recognized the signal of this person a week later when they'd been away from the lab. So that's just one single plant. And, science has shown these days that plants in a forest, it's almost like a giant brain. They are literally all connected, or certain species of plants. There might be one here and one there, but under the ground through their roots and also electromagnetically, they are a connected community. So, you enter the forest, it's not just one tree, it's the whole forest. I mean, there are stories of, North American Indian specialists who brilliant trackers and very, very sensitive, very much that idea of being integrated with the unseen worlds. But, they could be following someone or tracking someone, and they could put their hand on a tree at the edge of a forest and know that that person had passed through that forest, because the forest registered it and memorized it, and they could tap into that, pick up on the frequency of just one person moving through a forest.
Well, yeah, they've proven that if a parasite is presented to a tree at one edge of a grove, for example, immediately the tree, there's a certain chemical that the tree will produce to resist this parasite, but the tree at the end of the grove will produce it immediately as well. Yeah. The leap that we're still trying to get through is, they're always trying to rush to describe these things chemically. There's a chemical reaction that causes this, because if it opens up the unseen worlds of the electrical forces and magnetic forces at play, it just is explosive, the implications, really. Because the transference that can happen in the unseen worlds, in these electrical worlds, is instantaneous. There was a reverend called Charles Morgan in the early part of last century, and he was a reverend in a Methodist church in Canada. And he had gone to he'd gone to the church early to set up things for his sermon. And he had a bit of time to spare, so he sat down in his study and he fell asleep. And he had this dream of waves and darkness and people like shouting. And he woke up like feeling very sort of shaken up. And he went to sleep again. Same thing happened again. And he could hear in the dream people singing the song, "Protect Us, Father, from the Peril of the Sea." It was some sort of old hymn. And 3 times it happened. And he ended up going to the hymn board and adding this song on, this hymn on. When the congregation arrived and they sang this song, people witnessed him like tears coming down his face. And of course, that was the days before telephone and all that sort of thing. It was only later it was discovered, it was April 1912, and the Titanic was sinking at exactly that same time.
Yeah.
So this man was obviously a very humane, sincere soul, you could say. And something in him, like the trees on either end of the boss, something in him picked up on this extremely strong signal that was beaconing out around the world at that time, and caused him to pick up on it and translate it in the way that he did, even though he wasn't sure exactly what it was.
Yeah.
It's this unseen connection that's so fascinating, and the implications of it are so fascinating.
Amazing. My mother worked in the local library for many years, and a new lady came to work there, and she'd come from Indonesia, and they got talking one day, and this new lady explained on the day of that giant tsunami that they had, I think it was on Boxing Day a few years ago, that her morning routine was she would always go down to the beach early in the morning, and there were lots of stray dogs there, and she loved dogs and animals, and she would take food for them. And on that morning when she arrived at the beach, there were no dogs anywhere to be seen, and it really disturbed her, because again, it wasn't just feeding the dogs, there had been some connection built. So she, to this day, I mean, now she knows why, but it was totally out of her normal patterns. She ran home and told her family something bad's going to happen from the sea, you better get up to the hill to higher ground. And sure enough, half an hour later, that tsunami rolled through. And it was recorded later that things like elephants living nearby in the jungle herded up to higher ground. It's this thing where everything in the natural worlds, and I'm sure the plants sense something as well, but they can't do much about it. Everything sensed what was coming and responded accordingly. And there are stories of other humans as well who picked up something was wrong or just had an instinct to go to higher ground, but it was definitely the minority, not the majority. Most people go, what are you talking about? You're crazy, because the current view is that these things are a bit weird or unusual, and it's not really possible, but it is, because as in all these examples, there's a whole extraordinary dimension, this unseen dimension to life that connects all things. And as you say, I think as humans we've ended up disconnected from it or not plugged into it, but history in the past and the stories of people who lived more integrated with nature says very clearly that we have that ability, we have that possibility to be plugged in.